All right, let's see. Close your eyes just for a second. Imagine that first perfect bite of chocolate melting on your tongue. You get that warm, fuzzy feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I bet you haven't given much thought to the rock star who roasted those cacao beans to perfection.
Yeah.
Like a symphony of flavor, but with chocolate.
Yeah.
Today's deep dive is all about satisfying your curiosity and your sweet tooth.
Okay.
We're using RoleCatcher's career guide as our GoCo-destined map to explore the world of, you guessed it, the cacao bean roaster.
Ah.
Get this. It's way more than just throwing beans in an oven.
Right.
It's about high-tech equipment, secret flavor codes. We're talking artisan-level stuff.
Yeah.
So this RoleCatcher guide, it dives right into the machinery. Apparently, these roasters wrangle a whole lineup of gadgets. Continuous roasters, crackers, even things called fanners.
Yeah. That's right. Fanners are key because they separate the roasted beans from the chaff, basically the outer shell, ensuring a smoother, more flavorful chocolate. It's fascinating how each piece of equipment plays a crucial role.
See, this is what I'm talking about. It's like a whole other world most of us never even knew existed.
Yeah.
And speaking of worlds, the guide really emphasizes this production and processing know-how.
Mm-hmm.
Is that common across the food industry these days?
Absolutely. Specialization is key for quality and efficiency. Think of it like this. A master chef needs a sous chef who's a whiz with sauces right. Cacao bean roasting is similar. You've got experts ensuring each stage from bean selection to that final roast is top-notch.
Okay, so we've got the tech down. But RoleCatcher also talks about experimenting with roasting techniques to create different flavors. That's where it gets really interesting for me.
It's where the art meets the science, really. Just like a coffee roaster, a cacao bean roaster can coax out a huge range of flavors from the same bean just by tweaking time and temperature. We're talking about unlocking subtle floral notes, rich caramel undertones, even hints of spice, all from those little beans.
Hold on, back up a sec. You're telling me the same bean can taste totally different depending on how it's roasted. That's wild. No wonder the guide mentioned that consumers are crazy for unique artisanal chocolate these days.
Exactly. People are craving those complex flavors, those small batch, handcrafted experiences. And guess what? It all starts with the cacao bean roaster.
So we're talking serious artisan skills here. But what about the actual job? What's it really like to be a cacao bean roaster? Luckily, RoleCatcher gives us the inside scoop on the pros and cons. And guess what? They say this job is perfect for creative types who love to experiment. Who knew factory work could be so delicious?
It really challenges our perceptions, doesn't it? This isn't your typical assembly line.
Right.
Imagine the aroma of those beans roasting, the subtle changes in color, the constant experimentation to achieve that perfect flavor profile.
And don't forget, you get to taste test your creations. This RoleCatcher guide calls it sensory evaluation, but it basically means you're a professional chocolate taster.
Yeah,
Not a bad gig.
not bad at all, but there's serious skill involved, too.
Oh, right.
Think about it. A good wine taster can identify subtle notes of fruit oak, even the soil the grapes were grown in. Cacao bean roasters need that same level of sensory expertise to evaluate aroma, texture, and of course, those complex flavor profiles we talked about.
Okay, sign me up for that training. But seriously, it makes you appreciate the craft behind every chocolate bar you eat. And speaking of craft, RoleCatcher mentions that technology is changing the industry with more automation coming in. Does that mean robots are taking over the chocolate factory?
Not quite. While technology definitely plays a role, the guide emphasizes that human skills are more important than ever.
Okay.
A machine can't replicate the nuanced judgment of a skilled roaster, especially when it comes to adapting to variations in bean varieties and environmental factors.
So it's still about that human touch, that passion for the craft. But what about actually building a career in this? Thankfully, RoleCatcher lays out a whole career path.
They do.
They do.
Okay. It's fascinating to see how the responsibilities evolve as you progress from entry-level to junior to senior roaster. You start by learning the ropes, mastering the equipment, developing your sensory skills. But as you climb the ladder, you're taking on more leadership, analyzing production data, even collaborating with suppliers to source those top-tier beans.
It's like leveling up in a video game, but instead of collecting coins, you're collecting flavor profiles. And I got to say, this whole deep dive has me craving some serious chocolate. But before we break out the good stuff, there's one more thing I wanted to ask about. The guide mentions that being a cacao bean roaster can be physically demanding. What's the toughest part?
It's true. It's not all glamorous chocolate tasting. The work can be physically demanding. Long hours on your feet working with heavy machinery, and of course the heat from those roasters.
Yeah, I can imagine it gets toasty in there. But for someone who's passionate about chocolate, I bet that's a small price to pay.
Absolutely. Plus, there's the satisfaction of mastering a craft, of creating something truly delicious that brings joy to people.
Speaking of bringing joy, I read that the origin of the cacao bean can really impact its flavor. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's like wine. The terroir, the soil, and climate where the beans are grown, it all influences those nuanced flavors.
Okay, so picture this. I'm at the grocery store staring at a wall of chocolate. How do I even begin to decipher those labels? What should I be looking for to find those hidden gems?
Well, first, look beyond the mass-produced brands and seek out those bean-to-bar labels. That means the company has control over the entire process, from sourcing the beans to that final roast. It's a sign of quality and a commitment to flavor.
So bean to bar,
Yeah.
was my golden ticket.
Yeah.
But then what? They all talk about percentages, origins, single origin. It's like a whole other language.
Don't worry, it's easier than you think. The percentage refers to the amount of cacao in the chocolate.
Okay.
Higher percentages, like 70% or above, mean a more intense, less sweet flavor, often highlighting those unique origin characteristics.
Like those earthy notes or the fruity ones we talked about.
Exactly, and that's where the origin comes in. Just like coffee or wine, cacao beans have distinct flavor profiles depending on where they're grown. For example, beans from Madagascar are known for their fruity and citrusy notes, while Ghanaian beans often have a more earthy, nutty flavor.
Wow, I had no idea it was that specific.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sold. I'm officially on a quest for the perfect bar of bean-to-bar single-origin chocolate. But before I run off to the store, what's the most important thing you want listeners to remember about cacao bean roasters?
That behind every delicious chocolate bar, there's a skilled artisan who's mastered the art and science of transforming those humble beans into something truly extraordinary.
And that even though technology is changing the industry, that passion for flavor and quality, it's
Yeah.
irreplaceable.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected careers can be the most rewarding, both for the people who do them and for all of us lucky enough to enjoy the fruits of their labor.
And speaking of enjoying the fruits, I don't know about you, but this deep dive has me craving some serious chocolate. Think it's time for a well-deserved break.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
So there you have it, folks. A peek behind the curtain of the fascinating world of cacao bean roasting. Next time you indulge, take a moment to appreciate the craft and dedication that goes into every bite.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive has sparked a new passion in one of you.
Until next time, happy listening and even happier chocolate eating.